Hi, I am Corrine Lebrun, and this is all about the truth about Kundalini awakenings and entrepreneurship, or even spiritual awakenings. How do they connect? What's this really all about? So, what happens is when you have a spiritual awakening or Kundalini awakening, and really the difference between the two is with Kundalini, you tend to feel the electromagnetic energy moving through you. With a spiritual awakening, your consciousness expands. And the result is really similar with both experiences. But what happens is all of a sudden your entire worldview shifts. And if you're in business, you somehow think, I really need to shift my perspective because I want these to blend together. How do I do this? So let's talk about it. The art of doing business and what can you do on your spiritual path that you know you're going to get the same results over and over. That's why I call it the science of spirituality. So think of it this way, business as art. First of all, when you come up with your business idea, it's usually from inspiration, it's creation, it's passion. When it comes from that place of, let's say, a spiritual download, a dream, an insight, the want to help somebody, it can be for these reasons that create a sense of passion. Suddenly, creativity gets ignited on how you're going to go about creating a business to begin with. So business truly is art. So science and spirituality, you think, how do they blend together? Well, it's consistency, it's repeatable, it's predictable. So for example, if you meditate every morning, that is actually going to have a very clear, repeatable scientific effect on your brain and how you end up looking at the world. There's so much research on that these days you can't even argue that point anymore. So how do you integrate these two things? How do you integrate spirituality into business? Well, first, you say spirituality is conducted while you're doing your business. How do you stay in integrity with your heart, with your why, with the business itself? Like, how do you actually weave those things together? So staying spiritually connected, there are many ways to do this while you're actually in the day-to-day business. For example, you can start out your day with meditation, mindfulness. So mindfulness is when you're more awake and you are going about your day in a mindful manner, being present, aware of the present moment. Meditation is when you take the time to go inward. You're basically blocking out the world from the outside, and you're going inward and having that very deep, intimate inner experience. And also gratitude. When you are grateful, you're also changing your neurochemistry. That's what's so phenomenal about that practice. Creative inspiration, find things that inspire you. And when I say clean house, this last thing on this first part of this slide, it's about going inward and really making sure that all the emotional residue from past experiences that are unpleasant are cleaned. And believe me, even though it's a 1-2 word line, it is a discipline. There's so many ways to do this, but I actually do talk about it in my book, Infinity Within, like one method of cleaning house. Like, how do you deal with old resentments, old grudges, old hurts, grief, the whole 9 yards of the human condition? How do you clean up the emotional residue? Sometimes you need extra help, sometimes you need therapy, sometimes you need a support group. So those are all things to really discern by going inward. So another thing to do, which is really fun, and I love these pieces here, to cultivate awareness. How do you stay spiritually connected? It's so fun. So synchronicities, to start tracking them. And I also have a method, the spiritual log book, which you'll also find here on my YouTube channel, because I go through chapter by chapter how to create a logbook. Because when you start to write these things down, so for example, synchronicities, moments of intuition, the symbolism behind your dreams, when you start noticing the ebb and flow of the Tao, just watching the things around you and learning to interpret life in a more shamanic way, all of that awareness, when you start tracking it, starts to build upon itself. It's when you put it down literally pen and paper. And that's what's so important. The pen and paper, because that actually does something different to your brain than if you're just typing on your computer or speaking. It gives your mind permission for more of these things to occur. And all of my clients I've worked with have had the most phenomenal things happen when they start to track these things. And for me, it's been a practice I've been doing for decades. One of my very first spiritual teachers taught me how to do that, and it's just been so phenomenal. It's a tool I love sharing. So anyway, cultivating awareness of all those different things, the internal world and external world. So another way to stay spiritually connected is priming your brain. And that is through podcasts you choose to listen to, the books, audiobooks you want to read, the people you have around you. I mean, granted, sometimes the world is imperfect. We do have people around us that may not be the most positive people. And, sometimes we're there to help them. Sometimes we have to create boundaries. But, most often it's like, how do we help these people who are, feeling sad about life? How do we help them be more excited about the world we live in? And how do we share some of the excitement we have with them? And that's also a spiritual practice on how to prime your brain. So movies, the movies you choose to watch, the social media you choose to watch, because I think most of you know by now, what you click is what you're going to get more of. I mean, that is it's literally just like life. The more you look at something, the more you're going to see it. And with social media, it is just, it's right in your face. If you click something once and you go, oops, I didn't mean to do that, then, clickbait, next thing you know, you get like a huge news feed of it. So, you're going to have to curate that for yourself. But these are things to be aware of. And if you're a gamer, this is what I love about gaming. There's so many ways to prime your brain through gaming as well. There's so many ways. So here's a list of some of my favorite ways and that I found works so well with clients as well to stay spiritually connected, especially while you are doing business. And it's not just while you're doing business, of course, but these things really work well, especially when you have to have the discipline of, let's say you're leading a team or you're like leading an endeavor of creating things with an entire warehouse of people. You've got to be steady in yourself, steady in your own sense of identity in order for that to beam out to others. So how to conduct the business? It is the art, right? That's the art. What is the inspiration for your vision? How do you share it? Is it about social and ecological impact? How do you go about doing it? Do your spiritual values mirror the ethics and integrity that you are living in your business? And sometimes, especially for people when they've just had a radical spiritual experience, they might sit and go, oh, I actually realize I'm not conducting business in a way that is congruent with my own values, but geez, these were the values that I learned when I was a kid, but they actually don't work. They're not what I want to be doing with my team. I actually want to treat my team better. So things like that as well. Just the self-awareness. And also what's so interesting is your presence alone can create brain entrainment with your team. And this is phenomenal. I love that there's literature on this these days, scientific literature because of the brainwave studies. So when you enter a room, if you create the synergy with the group, everyone's brains entrained. It's super fascinating. That's when you get that feeling of like, wow, we're all gelling. We're all kind of gelling and it's working. That's what's happening on a neurological level. So taking a look at how do you really match business and spirituality? And it's about how the business is structured as well. So let's take a quick look here. So you've got your culture and people, your core values. What are they? How did they emerge out of your why? Sometimes it takes an expert to come in and help you walk through these things. It's not something I've ever seen a company be able to do in a day. It usually takes 1 to 3 months to really get to the bottom of what are the core values? What are the pillars for success? what things are lived values. And once you have these things clear, it's like smooth sailing, because then you know who to hire, then you know people understand how to do business with you, your branding is in order. It's like magic. It's pretty phenomenal how much cognitive dissonance it clears up when these things are clear. So the next piece, finances. Finances and spirituality, really, it took me years to figure this one out. But they actually, your finances tell a story. And this is where if you have a good CFO, they will help you understand this. They tell the story of your business, like what happened when you first started. Where are you now? Where are you growing? Where's the energy flow? Do you have a lot of customers and you just don't know if you can actually grow the business in which area because your finances are disorganized? Or are you having a tough time with cash flow and you just don't know where the money's going? Or is all your money getting spent on marketing or no marketing? All these things are a reflection of your inner state of being. It is really phenomenal. And that's where sometimes you have to do some cleanup on your internal story in order to allow for the energy to flow in your business. So much to be said about that. That is for sure. So also, let's move on to the product. Your why. This is your why in your business. You can serve a known need or an inspired need. You can say, I really feel like people need this thing, like the iPhone, Steve Jobs, right? We didn't know he needed it, but he knew we needed it. Or you can fulfill a need. Sometimes it's like, hey, nobody's doing this and I'm going to fulfill the need. Or it might be something that was handed down to you and the actual need for the business is to help the family thrive in abundance. So there are all kinds of reasons why your product has to align with your inner why. Okay, let's talk about marketing and sales. How does this align with spirituality? It's like you adapt to the energy of the market. This is going with the rhythm of the Tao. It is not something you can push. You have to keep aware of things to watch where the trends are going. What's that nice saying? It's like if you're trying to manifest a Ferrari in the desert, it is much harder to do in the middle of the desert than if you're, let's say, in Dubai, right? So you have to actually go with the rhythm of the times. And that is something, when you're quiet, you take time to reflect. You have time for strategy. And that is what's so important, to create a strategic plan based upon research. This is why successful entrepreneurs always take the time to recraft and craft their vision and look outward as well to say, what is happening with the market? What's happening with market trends? So there you go, rhythm of the Tao. Okay, also, marketing and sales. Authenticity. What is your brand translating? So good. Does it have a sense of meaning? Will it inspire people? Is it congruent with the energy of the rest of your business? Because it's what happens is, if there's that congruency, it's kind of like there's a steady energy flow and people can feel it. It's pretty phenomenal. And also, inclusivity. Of course, these days it's so important. Everyone knows like they're welcome in your membership of your product world, and be a customer focused business. Customers matter. Customers are number one, and we're really finding that out is what's going to differentiate the big giant companies who are impersonal, do everything based with AI, and then you've got the human touch. That's never going to be something that we don't want. So anyway, that is another piece. And then operations and strategy, another piece. Spiritual, how's it spiritual? Well, communication, that is spiritually based. Are you being authentic? Are you afraid to speak the truth, or do you feel safe to speak the truth? What is your work environment like? Do you have follow through? Does your team have follow through? Are you in congruence with your why? Is there efficiency, energy efficiency, and is there synergy? So these are all very spiritually based values, and you can see now how they actually integrate nicely and perfectly with doing business. So the art of business is truly about being divinely inspired. It's like you're inspired to do this. You're excited to build your business. You're excited to help people, or you're just excited to express your art. Because sometimes it's not your primary motive, may not always be about helping people. It might be like, hey, I like making cool stuff and I like watching people smile. That's it, and that's okay. It's all good as long as it's that divinely inspired energy of passion moving through you. And the science of spirituality, it's usually we think of like the art of spirituality, but the science of it is cultivating discipline. Cultivate the discipline so you are in integrity with your soul. That's when things really, they just ignite. They just ignite. And like, I love seeing this stuff. So one of the quotes I saw in a paper I was reading, it said, was about the intersection of spirituality and business. It had profound implications, and perhaps being inspired by the inexplicable is that which ignites the imagination to change the trajectory of our future. And it's like, think about the products that you've seen in the world that were, people were inspired by the inexplicable, the dreams, the downloads, going for a walk, and all like, oh my God, I have this idea, and how they change the trajectory of where we're going. The automobile, and of course the iPhone, and then there's so many other pieces. So anyway, that's something I love sharing about. I work with people everyday business owners, entrepreneurs, and I love the intersection of helping people understand how to ground their spiritual experiences and really like integrate them into life to elevate the world around us and really make it a better place. So thanks so much. And by the way, you can also pick up my book, Infinity Within, in the link. So feel free to reach out and have an amazing, magical day.